Hey guys, this is Kieran from Eccentric Physio. Today's exercise isn't something that's super specific, but it's something to help out with early stages of TFCC rehab. So this is sort of a complex on the outside of the wrist here, which, well, inside of the wrist, depending on the way you look at it. And it just helps stabilize the side, the front and the back of the wrist. It's a common thing injured with twisting injuries, but also in injuries where you've spent too much time in an extended position. You can have a gradual sort of degenerative injury there. So if you've had some injuries in that area, then watch this video and hopefully it can help you sort of start along that rehab process. So with the TFCC complex, one of the ways to think about it is it's a way that's going to stabilize bones around this area. It's going to keep them in a nice compact position when you start to create twisting movements. And if we start thinking about the ankle as a sort of an analogy in this situation, you've got pronation, supination. Now, supination position is a position that creates locking. It's a stable thing to push off of through your ankle complex in your foot. And we can also create supination in our wrist and our hand and our carpals to create stability through our wrist for weight bearing. What can happen though is people create excessive stability on the outside of their hand and they weight bear out through here. Now, what ends up happening if that becomes your strategy is, imagine this is stable, this is not moving, and my hand is twisting. So from this angle here, my forearm stays where it is, but this twists this way. So you could kind of think of it in such a way like, when people walk more on the outside of their feet. What happens when that occurs is that people have to create a pronation strategy, and they end up getting their big toe down onto the ground, and it creates this torsion, this twisting through the foot, and that's one of the ways that things like bunions can develop. Now, we're not going to see necessarily a bunion through this inside joint here on the hand, but what we'll probably see is more sort of, it could be a tear or it could just be extra strain through this complex here. So we've got to think about similar mechanics of pronation and supination. And we know that the foot is kind of more a slave to the hip, and same as said here. So if your wrist is a little more of a slave to the shoulder. Now, I have an old TFCC injury here from doing an exercise way back when that I wasn't ready for, and I've developed a bit of a ganglion. Now, that ganglion is just some fluid coming out of the joint because the joint's a little bit too loose. So I've lost some of my passive stability. One of the ways that might aggravate it is if I'm doing chin-ups like this. And what's going to happen, you can see that my shoulders don't have enough external rotation. The bottom back of my elbow here cannot face you guys. It wants to point that way. But because my hands are fixed on the bar, it creates a twist, and it creates that torsional twist that we were talking about where the wrist gets twisted this way and the forearm stays stable, except the opposite is happening because I'm fixated on the bar. So I've been doing some chin-ups, and that was okay until I started going into some hyperextension, doing some bridges. And I started aggravating this old injury a little bit. Now, if you've had a fresh tear, you've probably been put in a brace to stabilize, and you want to stay that way until your hand therapist or whoever's been looking after you gives you permission to start mobilizing. But you can do other exercises to help stabilize the proximal part, so things closer to the center of the body, like your shoulder or even your torso muscles, because they have a really strong role in providing proximal stability so that you can create this mobility out here. And stability just meaning that you've got control through a range. So one way to sort of test things out is if you're on your hands and knees like this, and you think about your hand like you would your foot, and you've got your big toe, you've got your little toe, and you've got your heel in here. Can you comfortably contact through all those points? Now on my right hand, I'm quite comfortable to contact this tripod onto the ground. So we've got this joint in here, little one, and heel of the hand here. Now on this side, it's harder for me, and it's not harder because of pain, it's harder because my shoulder doesn't want to internally rotate here. Those external rotators of my shoulder don't want to lengthen. But if we look a little bit closer, what my history entails is that I don't have a stability through here. I don't have a reflexive stability. So one of the ways I create stability is by going on the outside of my wrist, and then I create this torsion. So that happened because of a loss of stability through here when I was doing an exercise that I wasn't ready for, in terms of ready here, not ready here. So how did I sort of come up with a little solution to this? We have what we call, I guess, neurodevelopmental stages. And these are the stages where babies learn to stabilize themselves so that they can, get up and crawl and then get ready to walk and run. It's these sort of building blocks. And we can use them, bias them to create stability in places we don't have. And now I need to work on stability through this part of my torso. So what that can look like is being in this position like this. Now if I reach with my right hand and lift my right leg, now my left elbow and my left hip and leg have to stabilize and keep me stable. Now I can do that, so I know that, okay, I can do it, so it's probably not my starting point, it's too easy. So what we do is make it a little bit harder. And this is where a little bit of hip internal rotation comes in as well. Babies are gonna do this about 4 to 5 months. You're gonna bring that left leg up, and then I'm gonna lift my foot off the ground. I'm gonna drive, push that elbow and push the earth away from you. Be nice and tall, look forward, and then I reach with my right hand. I'm starting to shake here, it's getting harder to breathe. This is a nice place for me to start working. So in today's workout, I was doing the chin-ups. I had to move to a neutral grip so that I didn't get that twist through the wrist. That stopped aggravation. But then when I went into some lat pulls bent over on the bench, I realized, I'm not actually putting weight through this left knee. That's because I didn't have that abdominal stability. And it meant that I created extra force going through my wrist. I was out here on the outside of my wrist, not contacting this down. And if I tried to contact that down, I just couldn't because my body was so rigid through this area. So I had to load share. I had to create some stability somewhere else. I had to get more going through my knee so my abdominals would kick in. So in between my sets of rows, I did about a minute of this. And what I would do is I'd exhale for as long as I could, and then I'd just sort of a passive, just let the breath come back in naturally, and then I would exhale again, all while lifting my foot and trying to push that earth away from me. So I'm here, I push, and you can contact with your fingers a bit, you can push through there a little bit, just push that earth away from you. And what you're gonna start to feel is a lot of action going through this area. But what it means is now I can come into here, I can comfortably get my first finger down, this first knuckle, which means now I have more load share going through this complex. There's a little more going now through the radial side of my wrist and not all through this ulnar side. And I can take a little bit more weight through my knee, and now I have no pain in my wrist. And I was able to work on my rows because I now load shared through my wrist better, and I was taking extra load through my lower limb. And now I feel much less aggravated. So I could still do the things I wanted to do, but I had to make sure I was doing them properly. And a lot of the time we'll chase the pain and the symptoms because that's the loudest thing. But usually we get sort of dysfunction that's pain-free, and that's kind of hiding in the background. And if we can figure out where that is and what that issue is, then likely you're going to solve a lot of the other painful, more chronic things further away. It's kind of like that pebble gets dropped and you get that ripple effect. So yes, I have a structural injury here. I need to manage it, but I started doing some things again which were just a bit beyond the capacity of here, and I was creating extra tension through muscles that were helping me out, but because they were getting overloaded, I was getting pain. I was going into those nociceptors at the joints. So I was able to create some more stabilization through here, through my exhalation, and then I could weight bear through this nice arch through here of my hand and take weight through this knee, and then I could pull and be completely pain-free. So nice little trick, and it's something that you can do when you've got, say, a brace on, you're waiting for all this stuff to heal. You can get down on the ground and get into this position, push that earth away from you with your elbow and your forearm, lift that leg off the ground and reach. Be up nice and tall as you can, look ahead, exhale, and you're gonna feel that core set through your abdomen just really tighten up. And you're going to feel that things just sort of loosen up a little bit through the upper limb, if that's your issue. Maybe it's a hip issue though for you. So you can build a little bit of internal rotation, but another story for another time. So give that a go. Instant relief, instant change in my technique. And it just took a little bit more awareness where I wasn't having awareness. So let us know how you get on with that. If you like this video, then please hit like below. Otherwise, to check out more of our content in the future, you can subscribe to our channel by clicking our logo over here. And to check out our latest video, click up here.